calling. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome with a round of applause Mr. Varun Prakash, partner and leader of Chennai McKinsey, to moderate this session. And joining on the dais will be Mr. Jaideep Sarkar, Chairperson, Mizuho India Japan Study Center and Israel Center, and Mr. Velusamy, President, Automotive Technology and Product Development at Mahindra and Mahindra. May I request all the three gentlemen to come and occupy their stage on the dais, please. Please come. Can we welcome them with a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? All three of them on the stage are going to be discussing this very, very important topic of the day, new technology frontiers, how India can become the innovation engine of the world. May I have the AV of the speakers, please?
Mr. Varun Prakash, a partner at McKinsey, is an engineering graduate from Nanyang Technological University. He did his MBA at the University of Michigan, Stephen M. Ross School of Business. Mr. Jaideep Sarkar is a professor of practice in entrepreneurship at IIM Bangalore. He is a retired Indian Foreign Service officer with a wide experience in governance, including tenures in the Prime Minister's Office, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of External Affairs, and Indian missions abroad. Mr. Velusamy heads the product development and automotive technology at Mahindra and Mahindra Limited. He is also a member of the company's group executive board. He was instrumental in Mahindra and Mahindra's launch of various flagship products like Marazzo, XUV 300, Thar, and XUV 700, all of which are trailblazers in their respective segments.
May I now request Mr. Varun Prakash to take the session forward.
Are you able to hear me clearly? All right. Sorry? Is this clear? People at the back, are you able to hear? All right, perfect. So first of all, thank you, MMA, for organizing this really thought-provoking event. A lot of ideas came through from the last session. This is a topic that I'm personally very, very passionate about, so I'm looking forward to the discussion with the esteemed panelists. On a lighter note, I'm a big fan of the XUV 700, so I'd love to hear a little more about the innovation that went into it. But I wanted to start off by giving a little bit of a preamble on the topic and then requesting our speakers to give some opening thoughts. Let's talk firstly about technology, the digital economy, innovation, and what it means for India, why it's important, what it means for India, right? So really thinking about digital economy and technology, there are three lenses that I take to it. First is from the consumer lens. We are a country with more than 650 million internet users who have access to low-cost internet. More than 160 million people who do electronic retail transactions. So we are well and truly a digital economy and an economy that's aspiring to be at the forefront of technology. So that's the first thing. The second lens is if you take an enterprise lens, this is an economy, India is the fastest growing large economy in the world, right? We are the only large economy that's well above 5% per annum when it comes to GDP growth rate. And this is done on the back of an extremely rapidly technologically transforming economy. The tech intensity, we estimate, is going to increase from 3 to 5% as a percentage of revenue. So companies are doubling their investments in technology over the next 5 years. That's one. And second, we are also the service providers to companies that are exploring new technologies. India's tech services and business services revenue alone is more than $200 billion. So again, this is a very, very large part of what our economy is. That's number two. Number three is if you then take a public infrastructure lens, over the last few decades, we've actually built a very, very enviable public infrastructure, be it utilities like UPI, Aadhaar, be it some of the policies that are starting to be put in place to encourage the ecosystem to grow. We're a very rapidly evolving public infrastructure as well when it comes to technology. So all the conditions, the opportunity are in place for us to aspire very, very big when it comes to technology, especially when it comes to new technology. But this is the glass half full side of the equation, right? As you think about the future, it's not just about what we've been doing historically, it's about being at the forefront of some of the new ideas that are coming through. Last year alone was the year of ChatGPT. I think pretty much everyone has tried something or the other, some trick or the other with ChatGPT. But the role of AI, generative AI, is extremely large. And this is just one of many, many different technologies: quantum computing, distributed infrastructure, new materials, name it. Our industry, our economy is grappling with how can we be at the forefront of many of these areas. And we're not yet there, right? So in today's discussion, I'm looking forward to hearing from our panelists in terms of what are the big opportunities and ideas that we're seeing in the economy when it comes to new technology frontiers, when it comes to innovation, and what can we do as an industry community to ensure that we can be at the forefront of it globally. With that said, I'd love to invite Mr. Velusamy to come provide some opening remarks.
Can you load this? Is there? Yeah. Good morning and good noon. We are standing between you and the lunch, but we'll make sure that we all get a lunch together. So innovation is the key area, but there are lots of words used in the industry. Some people say discovery, some people say invention, some people say innovation. Sometimes I get confused myself, so I asked my guide guru, Google, so can you please tell me what is discovery? And then said, if Einstein and Hubble find out what is existing in the universe already, that's called discovery. So they didn't make new, but they just found out who before the generations have not found it out. By the way, what Einstein looking at in Caltech, the hills, is the expanding universe. We all thought the universe is static, but he found out, Hubble found it out that the universe is expanding faster than the light. So as long as you are standing within the universe, you cannot travel beyond light, but you are at the boundary of universe, then you are traveling faster than the light. What does that mean to us? That the customers are continuously changing, but in this era of technology, where the smartphones are there, the customers are changing much, much faster than what earlier they used to see. I will show you some graph. Invention is something that there are things existing and then you put together and find a new application. That's what our grandfathers did, and then we survived. Innovation is something that you perfect the process, methods of existing ideas. It's not a new idea, but it's an existing idea. The innovation has overtaken the inventions now to propel the economy. That is the message between the bullock cart and the iPhone. So let me give you some glimpse of how the world has been ever since known to human being. Can you get the audio, please?
Civilization from time immemorial. Whether it is to solve problems, improve the quality of life, satisfy curiosity, gain a competitive edge, or leave a legacy, Technological innovation has taken us from being hunter-gatherers living in jungles to becoming a knowledge-based society that knows no bounds. But the irony is that the spirit of technological innovations that drives us towards becoming an interplanetary civilization had also managed to wipe out millions of people in the form of the atomic bomb. Technology is indeed a double-edged sword. And when the intention is right, a small step for a man can indeed become a giant leap for mankind. Looking back over the last 1,000 years, the trigger of the technological revolution really started with the invention of the printing press. This was how the democratization of literacy began. Meanwhile, the life expectancy of the human race drastically improved through vaccination, and very soon anesthesia provided a great leap forward. The 1800s saw a wave of technological innovations that would change the world forever. First was the electrical bulb, which powered countless social changes. Then the telephone helped instant communication across the world. And then, of course, the automobile, which completely transformed personal mobility and freedom. This was taken to a whole different level with the invention of the airplane, which made intercontinental travel of both people and goods quicker. Soon came the computer, transforming the speed and ease of doing things forever. And finally came the internet, completely transforming humans into a knowledge-based society. Technological innovations are not just done by individuals, they need huge funding, and hence it needs the backing of large companies and corporations. Companies that successfully invest into these innovations succeed and become market leaders, while others end up losing their market and even go bankrupt. Let's take the example of Kodak. Once a juggernaut of a company that dominated the photographic film industry failed to see the importance of digital cameras. They eventually filed for bankruptcy in 2012. The tragic story of Kodak is a great example of how a major company can have blind spots for opportunities because of its core business. Nokia. The fall of Nokia, which back in 2007 had a market share of over 50% in the mobile phone market. The company was outstanding in developing hardware, but failed to see the importance of software as they thought that big software changes would alienate current users. Nokia's mistakes teach us a lesson of how previous success can limit the capabilities to innovate. General Motors Hummer. When General Motors took over the IP, the Hummer, which at the time had grown from being just a military vehicle into a strong status symbol among celebrities and civilians alike. But the positive image that came with it was short-lived. Soon consumers began boycotting the brand as environmental activists began positioning the Hummer as the most environmentally hazardous car. As Hummer's image did not change, its sales plummeted. Hummer's story shows how adapting to the market's trends and sentiments can be of crucial value. Xerox. Xerox Corporation was one of the most inventive companies globally. Though they were the first to develop the prototype of a computer and the graphical user interface, they couldn't capitalize on it. Mainly because Xerox's CEO saw the future of the company in copier machines, so he didn't want to spend too much on developing personal computers. The Xerox story tells us the importance of being future ready. The message is loud and clear. The reason why major companies fail to innovate isn't caused by a lack of willingness to do so. Rather, the problem is that they're too late in recognizing opportunities and threats because they're too focused on sustaining their core business. Be it Web 3.0, GPT-4, floating farms, electric cars, self-healing material, or even quantum computing. Technology doesn't just meet the aspirations of its customers, it tells them what to aspire for. Remember, yesterday's fiction is today's fact, and today's unimaginable is tomorrow's reality.
It's a shocking reality that how, if you don't innovate, Kodak, Nokia, Blockbuster, all of these companies fall down. And now you can see how the technologies are peaking and the cycles of the duration that you can see. In the years, you had long duration, but now it is very, very short. You have to keep constantly innovating it. Otherwise, the peaks of a given technology is overtaken by another peak of another technology, which is yet not known, but which is defined by the innovation. For example, who would have predicted ChatGPT will be the next peak of the technology when we invented cellular phone? That's the challenge in the innovation. Every leadership team thinks the innovation is the best thing that needs to be done to survive the industry. That's 84% believe. But only 6% of them are satisfied of how well they do innovation in their companies. Let's discuss over the conversation about this. You looked at all these companies, how they fall it down, and they were run by smart individuals, and there is a reason why they couldn't predict. But they are super smart CEOs. They are not ordinary people. But there is a reason behind it that we will converse during the course of our conversation. It's the same thing that put it in a different format. How if you don't innovate, the startups go bankrupt. Innovation is the secret sauce that sometimes define the next wave of technology, next wave of growth. Sometimes you adopt it and move forward. Where does it come from? It comes from inspired employees. And how do you create inspired employees is what our conversation all about going to be. Heraldis said, change is the only constant in life. The customer expectations, the customer mind, the customer needs keep changing. And if you are able to understand the need of change, the pains of customers, and you address with new innovations, then you are preparing yourself for the change. And the only tool is innovation. All the best.
Professor Jaideep, if we could invite you to provide some opening remarks as well.
Thank you very much. So the topic for the session, this session, is new technology frontiers, how India can become the engine of the world. And in this topic, I wish to draw your attention to the words frontier and engine. And therefore, I think that we should make a distinction between technology and technology frontier, and between innovation and innovation engine. And I think if we contemplate the time horizon for this convention, that's a very important distinction to make. We are all proud of the fact that our engineers and managers are at the top of some of the world's leading companies. And I imagine that a substantial number of them are alumni of this city and this state. But the real engines of innovation, of transformation, and of disruption are not CEOs. So while Sundar Pichai and Satya Nadella are running some of the world's best companies, we are not really producing people like Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos who are creating the world's best companies. And the two qualities that I associate with the names that I just mentioned are firstly that these are people who not only think outside a box, but think without a box. But more importantly, I think that they are consummate risk takers. They ventured into territories others didn't know existed or feared to tread. Our own relationship with risk and failure, I think, is more complicated. Sometimes I attend an event, a startup event, and the dignitary who's the chief guest will say that, look, 30% of our startups end up as successful companies. And I think to myself that in a startup culture where 30% of companies are successful, it means by implication that we are not taking enough risks. The greatest ideas in the world, Facebook, Apple, and so on, they don't come with a 30% strike rate. Taking more risks means accepting more failures. But this is something I think that in our society we still find very difficult to do. In particular, our best high school students enter our top engineering schools, the IITs, the NITs, and many of them have never stood second and are least equipped to deal with and understand the importance of failure. So we have to create a safe space in our society and in our education system for our best brains to experiment with new ideas. Our present education system has made great strides in spreading education to all tiers of our society. But can we say that it nurtures creativity, free thinking, or a problem-solving mindset? I was posted in Israel many years ago, and I was invited to a high school. I was initially reluctant to go there. But when I went, they introduced me to students from grades 9, 10, and 11 who were part of a robotics club. And the presentations they made, even though I'm an engineer myself, were so advanced that they went completely over my head. And I was told that in their system, they specifically identify the brightest youth, the most talented people in science and mathematics, and put them on a different track. So I think similarly, our education system must find some way not only to respond to the needs of the majority, but also to the needs of the few whose exceptional talents are not challenged, inspired, or stimulated by our present school system. Ladies and gentlemen, even till a few years back, who could have imagined that you would have a Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Indian origin or a presidential candidate of Indian origin in the United States? So I wouldn't be surprised if in the very near future a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk of Indian origin emerges in the Silicon Valley. But my question is, why of Indian origin? Why not an Indian in India? It is a fact, and this was referred to in this morning session, that there is a huge scramble of talented youth leaving our shores. Perhaps even more than before. Back in the day, it used to be that our best students would leave after graduation. Today, they're all leaving in droves after high school. So we really need to think carefully about the kind of living environment and quality of life in our cities that we are bequeathing to our next generation. How many of you have heard of the line in NEOM? That's N-E-O-M. Well, it's a new city that the Saudis are creating in the desert. It's a city which will be 34 square kilometers in size, but only 200 meters in width. And eventually, it will have a population of 9 million people. There will be no roads and no cars, only public transportation. Everything will be within walking distance. And they want to make it a global hub of innovation, where your whole time is not spent inside the car, but being free to think, to create, and to innovate. It will be run entirely on renewable energy with a zero carbon footprint. And I want to ask you, if the Saudis can do it, why can't we? Why can't we create a new city without all the problems of our existing urban spaces in every large state to begin with? We really need to devote attention to our physical spaces as much as we are doing to our digital spaces. And this calls for a state to be much more entrepreneurial. And this is the finding of the influential economist Mariana Mazzucato. And according to her findings, she says that for a society to be successful, the state must be much more entrepreneurial. And she points out that it is US government investment in defense, in health, and in science that have actually laid the base for path-breaking innovations such as the internet and the basic science that goes behind the drugs that are put in the market by American drug companies. So if I look at our own country and take a problem which affects all of us, which is major pollution in all our cities, it is a very complex problem. But surely solving it is not beyond our collective imagination. The UPI story shows how all elements in our ecosystem can come together to produce something extraordinary. But we need many more UPI stories. And for that, we need a state to be more innovative, more entrepreneurial, and more risk-taking. So ladies and gentlemen, I look to that time in the future that today's gathering urges us to do, when not only India's best, but the world's best beat a path to our cities, to our companies, and to our universities. And it is only when the Elon Musks of the future germinate and flower in the fertile soil of India that we can truly say that our engine has arrived at the frontiers of technology and innovation. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Velusamy, and thank you, Prof. Jaideep, for very, very interesting insights. I want to capture 3-4 things that you outlined, because I thought it was both counterintuitive and in some cases explained a lot, pointed to a lot of dichotomies, because that sets the base for this discussion. First, if you think about innovation, it's not just about breakthrough ideas, it's also about perfecting processes, systems, it's continuous improvement as well. I think that's interesting to note. Second, I think the video you showed pointed to the fact that big innovation requires big companies, big funding. Whereas, Prof. Jaideep, you mentioned that the heart of innovation is not the CEO, it's actually the ecosystem of startups and thinkers and people like, how do we create people like Steve Jobs? I think that's number 2. Number 3, the fact that we have a high number of startups that are successful is not a good thing, because we're not taking enough risk, we're not nurturing enough free thinking. So I want to use these 3 themes to kind of push this discussion across. But I want to start by first asking you to look into the crystal ball and say, what do you see as the big opportunities from an innovation point of view, from a new technology frontier point of view, from your vantage point?
So before I answer that question, let me put 3 statistics to you. The GDP of US is about 28 trillions, US dollars, of course. And the China is $18.5 trillion, which is all PP, purchase parity power based. And India is 3.7. So it shows an opportunity to grow, and it shows where we stand. The second statistics that you should know is where India stands in Global Innovation Index. India stands at 40 out of 132 countries. If you split the GDP and look at what are the constituents of the GDP, we are at service sector, we are at 54%. Service sector is contributing, and about 28% is coming from industry, and about 18% is coming from agricultural. So we are largely agricultural based country. In comparison to China, which is 17% agriculture based, in comparison to the US, which is 0.9 or 1%. There is large scope that our workforce have to move from these areas to the industry, because the service sector we are already 54%, but we need to get into the industry. That's when you will get the growth trajectory of GDP. Now, what are the new technologies and how do you eliminate? That's the basic question. Even in automobiles, if you take the industry that I come from, China is selling, last year from January to December, they sold about 30 million vehicles. 30 million vehicles, out of which 22 million are passenger cars, 4-wheelers, I'm not counting the 2-wheelers, and the 8 million are trucks. And if you take India, we sold about 4 million vehicles. China exported 4.7 million vehicles. Their export out of the 22 million is this. But the population, is very similar. So there is a huge opportunity with 850 middle-class families coming into, and there is huge opportunity. Now, the two sectors I can think of from my side is the electrification and renewable energy, apart from a lot of people will say ChatGPT, AI, ML, brain activities related topics, all of them will come, blockchain, all of them will come. But the two things that China is taking a lead over Europe and US is the electrification technology. Today, the penetration levels of electrification technology in China is 27% of their passenger cars, about 7 million or between 7 and 8 million cars, electric cars were sold last year. You know the fossil fuel dominated ICE engines. The Europeans and the Americans were the inventor of those technologies, and they were always licensing back to India and China. So you always had limitations in doing the inventions. Now the reverse invention is taking place where China has taken the lead in terms of electric innovation. So the number of vehicles that are sold, the battery technology, the vehicle electronics technology are originating from China, but we need to speed up in India in this field in order to get very fast. Yeah? And just for your information, in Europe, the electrification technology is only 14%, in US it is only 8%. So it is a transition like the peak curves that we have seen. Electrification is one technology and renewable energy is another technology where you can move extremely swiftly fast into the future.
I think that what the digital public infrastructure that we have created offers a real opportunity. I think in the US there's a tremendous amount of innovation, but not much regulation. In Europe there's a lot of regulation and not much innovation. And I'm hoping that our designers have got it correct. And if I look at the UPI story, I think that it's not just a pie in the sky, it really offers us something for the future. And I wouldn't be surprised, in fact, if the open network digital commerce does to Amazon what UPI has done to Visa and MasterCard.
Perfect. Thank you. So if I can stay with you, Professor Jaideep, and you pointed out to a lot of things we need to work on from an innovation point of view. But what are some of the strengths that you're seeing in the economy that can help us build on top of when it comes to new frontiers, when it comes to innovation?
Well, I think that our skills are essentially human strengths. The reason why I mentioned their names, people are there at the top of many multinationals, our capacity to adapt, our ability to work in plural environments. And if you look at the concept of frugal innovation, I think our social innovators have really done path-breaking work under extreme constraints. Constraints where you don't really have a proper ecosystem support, there's no supply chain, there's no logistics, your customers cannot pay, as a social innovator, your social enterprise, you barely have any funding. And under these extreme constraints, how do you build a sustainable financial model? So I think this is the ultimate sandbox for innovation.
And if I can extend the same question to you, if you take the view of somebody who's driving innovation in one of the largest companies in the country, how do you see the strengths that you're building on top of in your role?
The strength is the millennials and the Gen Z that we have, and they are bonded to the digital technology. Now, if you take the AI and ChatGPT, the speed at which these technologies are penetrating into automotive design. For example, in our R&D, we use over 100 engineers models to do aerodynamic simulations. The cars that we are bringing, all the electric cars that we are bringing, we are using AI to do the aerodynamic simulations. That can give you, for example, if we take six months to do about 600 simulations, the AI can do about 100 simulations and then do the extrapolate all the combinations and then say, pick up few simulations and then tell you that these are the simulations that you need to do and not the rest of the simulations. It's incredibly good technology. Now, how come this AI is so powerful and where are we lost out? If you take OpenAI, OpenAI has been developing this algorithm for the multi-language model, the large language model technology that they have been developing. But the real breakthrough came from NVIDIA, who gave them supercomputers. Now, it is the hardware and it is the algorithm that supported the supercomputer running that together helped the AI to survive. Now, these technologies can well be developed in India. For example, if you take Tesla, it's of course a competition to us. I take 1 or 2 minutes more and to give you an example. Venkatraman is the engineer who designed the computer chip for supercomputers. What Tesla does is, he has given the autopilot cars to the market. Now, he has radars and he has camera visions, and all these are connected to the connectivity, and then it goes back to him. He is able to measure the road surfaces, potholes, attitude of the vehicles, the rolls and the turning angles, all this very precisely for every centimeters. And these data are fed back to his central computing system, supercomputing system. Now, it is continuously learning about how the driver behavior in actual road. If you use a navigation map, you wouldn't really find it out the road surfaces. And if you remove the driver and the autopilot is driving, you really need the road surfaces to know to turn and to know the speed breakers. Now, these data which is going back from the users is training his autopilot model in the supercomputer division and feeding back to all the customers again as a software update through OTA. Now, what does it do? It gives an extreme safety and an experience of the cars. Now, technology is aided only by AI and the supercomputers. And this technology can well be developed in India. And imagine this technology is developed and then in Chennai city, you completely map every centimeter. You can give the autopilot.
Just picking from that, I think you're saying, one, we have the talent, two, we're fairly frugal when it comes to innovation, and three, if I can extrapolate from what you're saying, we're very good fast followers. We may not be the industry community that's creating breakthrough IP. So I want to stay on that.
The two guys who are working in Tesla, Venkatraman from Chennai and Ashok Velusamy, I think he comes from middle of South and he studied in Anna University and then he went to Carnegie Mellon and he's the software head and Elon is directly in touch with him. I had spoken to both of them. You will see it. They studied and then they went to AMD, as a chip making company. From there, Elon picked up personally, and then these two guys have developed this autopilot and this supercomputing division. You wouldn't believe two guys are from Tamil Nadu.
That's wonderful and reinforces the fact that the talent exists to be able to do this out of our country. But all the examples we took as well, NVIDIA, Tesla, OpenAI, they aren't Indian innovations, so to speak. So what would it take for us to do this out of our companies, our industry, our academia? Please go ahead then.
I think I mentioned in my speech about building new cities, which would be sort of completely new thinking on innovation. Look at the Silicon Valley. That's a terminology of the 1980s. They don't produce silicon chips in Silicon Valley. That's long gone to South Korea and Taiwan. Why is it that in India we can't think ahead? Why not a robotics hill, an AI highway, an IoT runway? So I think if we are aspiring for the kind of front-ranking economy by 2047, we have to think big and we have to think bold.
The reason that holding us back, though we have the Gen Zs and millennials, is threefold if I were to look back. Okay, you go back, innovation needs investments, and then you make a plan, and then you go to the board. Innovation is always looking into the skies through the crystal ball of gains and losses. And uncertain is the crystal ball that you always see it. How certain is this result, and how uncertain is this result? And the way you explain to the board and how they believe you that you will make it happen, that's where whether the innovation is approved or stuck down. And majority of the time, it is that we fail to impress upon the leadership who has to approve this technology. And there are 2-3 reasons why we are not able to convince them is this psychological safety. What is this psychological safety? Are we afraid of taking risk? I am always held by mother when I am walking on the road. I was never let free. That you decide the destiny in the road, because my mother was always afraid that I will cross the bullock cart or the car, or I will get hit by something. My mother didn't know that I have the courage and intelligence not to be in front of any of the moving vehicles, right? It is the same symptom that continues. Take Elon. Elon took a big bet. But the traditional automobile companies, whether it is Ford or GM or Toyota or even VW, they cannot take the big bets. But he is the number one in all the 3 countries, and he is leading the revolution of electric. So it is not how big you are today. It is not the size of the cat, but it is the size of the fight within the cat. That matters. And that is what Elon had, that I will revolutionize electric, and therefore he invested. He put all his earnings and he invested it. That psychological safety that we should breed in our youngsters and in our investors. And that will lead to enormous amount of, if you have 5-6 investors like this and a group of youngsters who take this lead to do the technology development, then you have it like what Saab mentioned. You need Steve Jobs, and you need Elon Musk, and you need the Amazon guys to do that one. That's exactly we need. 4-5 guys we need, and then India is a different story.
But you also mentioned that big companies will need to invest in a big way, right, when it comes to breakthrough technologies, because the amount of capital is very, very large, risk is high, and you need that to scale it up. So the question is, how do you view, when you think about innovation, how do you view your portfolio in terms of things that are incremental product improvements, meaning the next XUV 700, versus completely new areas, meaning battery-operated trucks, versus completely breakthrough IP, like what some of the examples that Elon Musk was doing? How do you view that balance between this?
So now what we are seeing is that the corporates are entering into innovations, but they are also going and asking for an investment from the other investors. For example, in our electric company, British international investments have invested it, and then Temasek from Singapore, they have invested it. Now, these investments are crucial for our electric vision. So we are developing 3 cars to be launched in the December 2024. You know, the electric vehicles cars are released, the images are released, you would see it. They will be the leading technologies when it comes to electric vehicle. What are the technologies we try to bring in? These technologies have a camera that is inside your car. It is monitoring whether you are wearing the seat belt. It is monitoring your eyeballs, both the eyeballs if you are a driver. And then if you are looking ahead the road, it is telling you in the infotainment display that you are very good at driver. But if you do like this and then keep driving, it alerts you saying that look straight ahead, don't look in sideways, because it is monitoring your eyeballs. Suppose you are wearing a jacket and you get into a car, and then you got out of the car with the jacket, and then you get into the car without the jacket and tells you, have you forgotten the jacket? Be careful about your wife. You are going to be pulled down by your wife. So It is monitoring you, and what happens, something unusual thing happens, anomaly happens inside the car. It is connected to the security system, it already alerts you. That's one technology. Then an ADAS technology. Then you have a 3-screen technology where it gives an entertainment, where the third screen in front of the passenger co-driver, you can really see the cricket matches live. So we have a 5G technology connected to this. 5G is 100 times faster than the 4G. In India, 5G, thanks to the governments, all the governments so far, you have incredible adaptation of the 5G rates now coming in. I mean, look at the data speed at which it is coming with the 5 milliseconds of latency, and you can watch the cricket match in the car. The car is the office for you now. The electric vehicles, Tesla, you know why people love the Tesla cars? Because it has an autopilot. And you switch on the autopilot, the license cost is 12,000 euros. 12,000 euros and $14,000. You know this? This is the game. It is the software that is selling much more. It is the technology, it is the experience. Many of my friends in UK and US buy this car. It is to experience this. I'm not sure whether they think it is an electric car or not, but it is the experience of the car. If you give the experience of these kind of technologies, you just, Ram Mandir was built and then Tesla released a video with all the Tesla cars dancing lights, and then the door was opening and the windows were going up and down, and there was a music put, and the song was singing about Ram, and then it is released to the worldwide. And it has a huge viewership about it. I mean, look at this, is electric car doing this trick. The kids love it. And this trend technology was picked up by Chinese and then Elon Musk, both of them. So Tesla was the only company approved by China without another Chinese company being a partner, because he developed this technology and he brought it to China, and the China has picked it up. It's now India's time that we will pick it up in our 3 cars and we will introduce by end of this year. And that's why these investors we could attract. It is these technologies that you should gun for it and make India more powerful.
On a lighter note, driving is a big hobby for me. I really like to unwind with driving. From whatever you're describing, it sounds like that's going to change completely. Work is going to come into the car as well. Prof. Jaideep, you spoke about the fact that 30% of our startups are successful, and that's too high a number. And it alludes to something that he was mentioning as well, which is that there's probably not enough risk capital available in our economy for innovation. How do we change that? And links to a question that Shankar from Hyderabad has asked as well, which is, what can we learn from other innovation-driven economies like Israel that you were alluding to?
Yes, I think that this aspect of failure is very important. You mentioned Israel. Now, Israel is a country where there is no stigma on failure. I mean, they look at it as simply another stepping stone. But in our system, as you know, we still have a lot of, there is a stigma on failure. It creates social problems and so on. So I think that traditional societies like ours, the Japanese, the Eastern countries, this is not something that will change overnight. I think, but I do wish to say that the good part of all this is that the change is coming. I mean, there is a lot of change that we see already. If you look at the graduating classes from the IITs and IIMs, 30 years back when I graduated, doing a startup was my mother would have started crying if I had told her. But today, I think a substantial number, a percentage of these graduating classes are actually going into the startup world, which is risky, for which there is uncertain social status, uncertain returns. So I think we're on the right path, but as I think Rahul or some of that there is still, I think, a very long way to go.
And if I can stay with you, just building on that, how do we build more industry-academia collaboration when it comes to innovation from your vantage point? And I'll move to Mr. Velusamy to talk about it from an industrial vantage point as well. But
look, I think that despite all the sort of strides that we are making in industry, in innovation, in technology, if you look at the numbers, our investment in research, in science and technology, continues to be among the lowest among all the sort of growing economies. It's about 1% of our GDP. Israel, South Korea, they're at 4%. So I think that a lot more money has to go into, to begin with, before all this collaboration takes place. A lot more of both public investment as well as private investment has to go into research, into science, and into technology. You're right, I think that we don't have the kind of ecosystem that we see in the United States, where universities are a sort of part and parcel of their ecosystem. As I said, I think these are things that are a work in progress in India, and I think universities are taking steps to develop. After all, you can't expect industry to link with academia unless academia produces the kind of research and capability that is required in industry. And at the same time, industry themselves have to want that kind of capability. So I think we are a work in progress, but the starting point really has to be more investment.
And then if I can shift over to you, Mr. Velusamy, on the same question of how can we drive more industry-academia collaboration? And the reason I'm asking this also is twofold. What he mentioned, which is we're just not investing enough into R&D, into innovation. The second is, if you look at some of the most successful innovators globally, not all of the thinking is theirs or homegrown. A lot of startups, a lot of innovators get patents from academia, get patents from university, and then build on top of it to drive breakthrough innovation. So if you could comment on this, please.
True. Maybe a couple of minutes more I will take, if that's okay, then give you some examples. So I went to US. We were developing battery technology. I was searching who did the cell technology development first. So all of you know Goodenenough is the guy, John Goodenenough is a guy from UK, Oxford University. He invented the lithium ion cell. First he invented the lithium ion cell. So Oxford University has a principle that they don't patent it. So he went in across the street, he went and then found a company who will patent it, and he sold it to Sony Corporation for £5,000. And then Sony Corporation and Samsung Corporation thereafter made millions and millions and millions, and this guy did nothing. So this guy was in Oxford, and this one, Maniratnam R. I found, I was reading these papers 2 years ago about the cell technology. Then Maniratnam R. from Madurai Kamaraj University, he went and he did a PhD in ISC Bangalore, and then he went and joined under him as a research associate, and he worked with him on the lithium-ion battery, and he gave actually the speech for the Nobel laureate of John Goodenenough. He was a scholar, and he published so many papers on the lithium-ion battery. I was shocked. Here is a guy from Tamil Nadu who is in UK and then moved to Texas University. And then I reached out to him, sir, can I talk to you? He immediately responded back saying that, yes, please tell me your convenient time. I was shocked. He has so many papers, and then he says, your convenient time. We connected, and then he said, so much of laboratories he is assisting, and then he found out that Tesla has made a contract with him and then did the cell research in the development. So he was involved in this. So he told me what the cell you should go. At the time, I didn't make a contract with him. And then he told me what cell you should choose for your technology. And he explained to me, free of cost, nothing. And it was overflowing. Any conversation that you ask on a cell, it was just overflowing from his mind. So I said, sir, I don't want to take free advice from you. I want to make a contract. I said, my university has certain rules, and then these, and it takes 6 months to put a contract. So last week he was here in our, everybody is invited to MRV. We have invested 200 crores to build battery and cell research, and as per advice of this gentleman, and that's where our battery and cell development takes place. I would boldly say Anand Mahindra and Anisha took this vision to invest it, and that's our bottom block now for the next years to come. Now, here is the story that he told me. The Chinese and the South Korean battery cell manufacturers, the students were the PhDs who were doing under him. And these PhDs went as a CTOs to these companies. They are in continuous contact with him in order to develop these cells. 20 years ago, 2008, they started these developments. So it is the industry and the research body who started first collaboration, and then the technology trickles down to MTechs and BTechs. And this is what we need to spot out. The whole Indian, it's one state, one person, you can find it out and you can get this collaboration. I can imagine the whole India, if you map it out to the Western world, and then find it out and then make a connection and then start doing your development, India will go anywhere. It's exactly China did. The government sent so many people. I just give another example, if you permit me. I went to Israel. I wanted to develop this autonomous car and these technologies, ADAS level 4, level 3, level 4, and then level 5 comes later. Mobileye is the company, so I landed in Tel Aviv. You know what it takes to land in Tel Aviv. It's not easy. And you came out of the airport. I got into a car. They said, I asked, where is the driver? No, sir, this car is a driverless. No, I said, no, I cannot. It's in Israel. I cannot sit. So, okay, sir, you sit as a co-driver. I sit as a driver, but I will not touch the steering wheel, and my leg will be pulled backward. Okay, he said, the car goes for an hour to Jerusalem. The traffic in Israel is just as before the war. It is as aggressive, as crowded as India. The car beautifully drove to me to the company, except one location where there were the road was diverted, and before this car arrived, they put some bundles of rocks, and then this was about to hit the rock. The driver took a diversion, and he told me, this map is not into my computer. That's where the Tesla, which I said, is coming into this computer. Nowhere else I had the scare of this car is going to hit somewhere. And the traffic situation in Israel is not different. There I decided that it's not a European road or an American road that you need to put at autopilot. You can do it in India. So we are working very closely with them, and you know how difficult it is. There I met the CEO and I asked him, how did you develop this? He said, I have 3,500 engineers. Out of 3,500 engineers, 500 engineers are PhDs. And these engineers work with Israel universities, funded by government, assisted by government. My government tells me, develop the top-notch technology, and this is what the money that we give you as a sponsorship, but prove me that you turn this into economy to the company, to the country, and you employ the people. Therefore, there is a return to the government as a tax. Now, this model is the one model that I found. Now, I asked, where is these 500 PhDs are coming from? Where are these? These are all studied in the best universities in the US. Now, every IIT is sending to the US. You have the people. All that you need is you have to get them and do this. Then your economy will propel. If you have to move from 3.7 to $18 trillion or $28 trillion, this is the only way.
You mentioned about Israel, and I think their model is very instructive. You see, unlike our system, they have comprehensive universities which have medical schools and engineering schools as well. So each of their leading universities have what is called a technology transfer company, which markets and commercializes technologies developed in the lab. And they're so aggressive in marketing. Ramoth, which is the technology transfer company of Tel Aviv University, they came to the Tata Group many years back and said, look, we have all this capacity. You tell us what are your problems, we'll solve it for you. So they are very aggressive, very innovative. And their funding model is, in fact, a very unique model. They fund startups. It's a government program. They fund startups. If you make money, you pay back the loan. If you don't make money, it's forgiven.
That's called success through failure.
So not only are you bringing the office to the car, you're going to remove driving as well. So, this has been absolutely fascinating. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. Maybe one final round of comments. We have a lot of future leaders in the audience. Any advice for them from an innovation point of view and how to think about the future?
Innovation is not about money. It's not about idea. It's about culture. The culture is, do you want to take a risk or you don't want to take a risk? And the new growth is always 50% chance of failure and 50% chance of success. The man who puts the faith that it will succeed, and even if it doesn't succeed, if it fails, I'm going to celebrate it, then your entire organization will come up with brilliant ideas. The moment you start pulling down every failure, who is responsible? If you witch hunt, and if you keep hunting the person who is responsible for the failure, instead of the collective system that led to the failure, and if you don't celebrate, no one in your group will come with risk-taking ideas. They will come with very, very safe ideas. The safe ideas will be nothing but equal to your competitors, and you will fall down. It is the balance between how much safe ideas you want to harbor and how much risk ideas that has the huge potential of growth you want to harbor. The distinction that you make, how much percentage that you allow in this side and that side, is the needle point of leadership. The need in our India is to have change in the leadership thinking and culture. This is one. Second, how do you collaborate with governments and industries and the investors? And how do you get all the best brains that have gone to US and Europe, how do you get them back and harbor the technology development? These are the three ways that you can propel our technology, our country.
I think by way of advice, who can say it better than Steve Jobs, who at the end of his commencement address, his very famous address at Stanford University, and his address to that graduating class was, "Stay hungry and stay foolish."
Thank you again. I think as I've heard you, I'm left thinking that there's a lot of optimism around innovation, around new technologies as you think about the future. And there's a lot happening within the country as well that seems to allude that we are on the right path. We have a lot of important endowments in place. We have the talent. We have a public digital infrastructure that is enabling this, and hunger in the economy to go after this. But there's a lot to be done as well. We need risk capital. We need to be willing to fail. So fantastic discussion. Thank you so much for sharing your candid thoughts.
Thank you so much, Varun, for moderating the session so well. Thanks to both the guest speakers as well. May I now invite Mr. Ravi Chandran, Past President MMA, and Mr. Suresh Raman, Past President MMA, to come onto the dais along with Mr. Mahalingam to do the honors of presenting a memento to the guest speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, they deserve a big round of applause. I think we've covered everything from bullock car to a driverless car in this session. So, time was the only constraint. There were a lot of online questions as well. I'm sorry we couldn't take all of them, but I think the gist was given out. Thank you. Mr. Varun, yeah. So, Varun talked about the public infrastructure and how the digital technology is helping in improving a public infrastructure. Mr. Velusamy actually talked so much about the importance of being future ready. And one of his things that he posted on the slide was complacency is the kiss of death in business, which is very, very right. And he showed us so many examples for that. And then we have Mr. Sarkar, who talked about the importance of education in providing a free thinking and problem-solving ability. All the points well taken from all the guest speakers. So yeah, we pose for maybe a good group photograph now. So I'm happy to announce that we are on time for lunch as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the close of second special session of the day. We break for lunch now. You have one good 60 minutes for lunch. So have a good lunch and let's be back by 2:10 p.m. to start the third session on time.